Hello, this is the TradeSite US Stocks and Futures Market Preview for the week beginning Sunday, the 7th of January 2024, ending Friday the 12th. So, we had a short week, obviously. Monday was New Year's, we were closed, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, thought maybe things would pick up, and they didn't really. Friday was fairly uneventful. We'll look at the interweek action. So, it seems like even though we had a pretty good layout for the holiday, they held off, and hopefully now people are back to work. I know there's some storms hitting back east and stuff like that. It's going to be cold, and that affects people getting to work and all the stuff that comes with being in the markets. But we'll see what happens. So let's start with the dollar index daily chart. Look, dead in the middle of the range for the last year. Hasn't really gone anywhere over the course of the year. Obviously, it was higher at one point, lower at one point, but still closed in the middle of the year. The euro dollar. Look at that 13 sell signal there, right on the money, just 6-7 days ago. But still the inverse of the dollar index and going nowhere. We got the pound dollar also going nowhere. Never even got a 13 sell signal all year or a buy signal. Really strange for a whole year of that. Here's the ES front month futures contract. So the daily chart of the broad market and futures form, and the old expression is this, right? That if the first 3 days of January are down, the rest of January is usually up, and vice versa. We were down. Some of it was from gaps, and the actual intraday trading was horrible. So I don't know what that's going to really mean. Let's look at the S&P 500 cash. It looks a little different here, but down a little bit. I mean, nothing special, but it's still down for the start of the year. And so does that mean we've got, actually, why did I lose let's get our account back up here, right? Let's get the seeker count up. Right, so, we had a 13 sell signal 2 days before the end of the year, and so we were off because of that. That certainly has not come to fruition, meaning we have to go all the way back to 43.53, the red line down there, to really make that work. And that's still 600 points lower. That would be, bad. But again, as we know, when you're up for the year, they don't tend to sell off stocks once you get to around November 15th. If we're near the highs, they don't sell them off. And so we rallied right at the end of the year. We got a sell signal right at the end of the year, and we're down. The question is it down because of the first 3 days and then up after that, which would blow that signal, or is it actually the signal that matters because things are extended? And by the way, there's some other factors here we'll talk about. We've got a lot of sell signals on stocks like Apple and all these other ones, both on the daily and the weekly charts. So this is going to be interesting to see. My gut tells me we're heading lower, but we don't play off our gut. We play what we see every day, and we play our signals. But that was the Nasdaq 100. Not much there. For some reason, my seeker signals all dropped off of here. So let's look at the Russell 2000 as well. And there's no signal in place at all here. But it did sell off. This one sold off quite a bit more this week than the S&P and the Nasdaq 100. Bitcoin holding up, 43,843 as I do this. TLT, the 20-year bond ETF, down a little this week, but well off the lows. Obviously that was the concerning point back in October when the bond market was tanking. That means rates were way up. Now we've come back quite a bit. Rates are heading back down, and I think the market thinks that the Fed's going to do their thing here, starting probably in March or April. But we got some strong job numbers on Friday, so anything is still possible. Obviously, the VIX closes at 13.35. These low teen readings on the VIX is what's holding us back, and we need the VIX to get back over 16, 17 bucks to start to see the excitement we like to see in the markets. Advanced decline ratio on the New York was back and forth this week, although more days negative than positive. The trend closes at 0.65. Again, this one, why is this happening? We've lost a couple of things here. This is interesting. I don't know why this would be happening here, but let me add the 10-period EMA, which is what we like to go off of. That's the gold line, and it's at 1.08, so it's above the 0.85 number. Under that would be a sell signal in the market, but we have a big number that's about to drop off, so we could get down there real quick. We'll see what happens. Here's the week on the ES, and again, January 1st was a holiday, so you're only looking at really the last 4 days. We gapped down on Tuesday, the start of the year. We gapped down on Wednesday, opened flat on Thursday, and then still closed lower, and then Friday opened flat and closed where we opened. If you go from the start of the week until here, you're only 40 points down, but 50 points down. But if you go from the end of the prior week, it's almost, it's 80 points. That's a little bit bigger deal. NASDAQ 100, on the other hand, same story. Everything's trading in sync. There's definitely program trading going on to start the year. But they look exactly identical from a chart perspective. But this thing, from where it closed December 31st, or the last day of December, sorry, at about 17,000 down to 16,004. So it's down 540 points or so. Right, so it's a decent drop for sure. Now let's look at some of these individual stocks. So like Apple, for example, has a sell signal on the weekly chart. If I switch, this is where I think there's some concerns out there. If I switch Apple to a weekly chart, it had a 13 sell signal 2 weeks before the end of the year. Apple hasn't had a weekly sell signal since like 2020. Okay, so this is kind of a big deal, and we're obviously down since then. There's discussion about the government going after them for antitrust stuff and whatever. So, and as we know, Apple's such a big piece of the market, it's going to be hard for the market to go up if Apple goes down. But so far, that 13 sell signal, we're making good money on that. If you took that trade, and it's on the weekly time frame. So, very, very interesting. Then you look at something like Amazon. Nothing here on the daily, but it is down so far to start the year. Meta also down a little bit, although it curled up on Friday. Google had a 13 sell signal on the daily 4 days before the end of the year. It's been down ever since. That was the high. So it's hard to get these signals wrong. By the way, separate from that, Google didn't have a 13 sell signal or buy signal all year. Waited until the last day of the year, and that was the high of the year. So just how important are those signals, right? We've got Goldman Sachs here, which for some reason, again, not showing the seeker, so let's add it back on. And no signal there at all. Netflix, ooh, this is weird. These things are saved, so I don't know why it's not doing that. But there's your Netflix with the seeker, no signals there at all. Tesla, one more we'll have to add back in, but this thing's off nowhere near the highs, and obviously went down the last week as well. This thing never got a seeker sell signal all year. NVIDIA is hanging near the highs. This one's very important. And again, you need to take a look at the weekly time frames as well. Don't just look at the daily, and I'll let you do that on your own time with the signals. But no daily signals here on NVIDIA. Zoom back down this week. Look at how quickly this sold off to start the year. Closed near the highs, and then boom, 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 big sell-off. And then First Solar, pretty much holding where it was at the end of the year. Not a lot of excitement there, but still really interesting. Let me add the no signal counts there. Let me add the Zoom one back in. So now I think they're all, I think they're all back. But again, we didn't have anything on Zoom either. So, everything's in there. Just the main signal is Apple and then Google, and that's what you got to look out for. I think it's also Meta, if I remember correctly, that has maybe something on the weekly. Yeah, there's a 13. It's violated the risk line, though. So that's not as important. All right. So now we look at the economic calendar for the week ahead. It's the second week of January, 2024. The holidays are behind us. Like I said, there's some storms ahead and some other stuff that, if these storms end up being bad enough, they can slow things down in New York, and that affects everybody else. But in terms of everything else, we've got consumer credit at 3 p.m. Eastern time on Monday is the only data point here in the U.S. On Tuesday, we've got the NFIB Small Business Index at 6 a.m. The trade balance number at 8:30. That's one of our big three each month. So that'll be interesting to see what that means and how we go from there. That typically affects Forex more than it affects stocks, but you never know. No other real data on Tuesday that we care about. CPI out of Australia going overnight. On Wednesday, final wholesale inventories here in the U.S. at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Crude oil inventories at 10:30 because there's no holiday. And on Thursday, the CPI number, also one of our big three, and obviously one of the more important things we're looking at because of all the inflationary things. So be prepared for that one to make the markets move a bit, potentially, although the projections are back to not much for inflation, which is a good sign. We got the weekly initial and continuing jobless claims numbers at the same time, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. Natty Gas at 10:30, 30-year bond auction at 1, federal budget balance at 2. And then on Friday, we got the PPI at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And again, that's not very projected very high either. So, there's some stuff there this week. I don't know if it's huge. And then the other thing to remember is that that gets us through this week. But then the following week, on Monday the 15th, is the Martin Luther King holiday. So the stock market's closed, everything's closed. So we're working into a 3-day weekend again. We have a lot of them in a row here around this time of year. Only 8 of them all year long, 8 big holidays, and 3 of them are kind of packed together into like a 1-month window, and this is one of them. So that's it. Charts, as usual, brought to you by NinjaTrader. If you've not yet taken a trial of our services, feel free to do so. We will help you out for a couple weeks. Have a great trading week.